Hi friendos, my name is Stuart, and welcome to probably one of the most eagerly anticipated videos since we began covering MCU characters, and that is Steve Rogers, or better known as Captain America. Cap, much like Iron Man, is considered one of the first characters and the most successful ones out of the Phase 1 of the MCU, having consistently good movies and character arcs that are just really good to watch. Born in Brooklyn in 1918, Steve was a small and sickly child whose parents died fighting to help others. This helped instill Steve with a great drive to help others and fight injustice. As he became an adult, he witnessed the United States enter World War II, and wanting to help people, he attempted to sign up when he was subsequently denied entry into the war efforts multiple times. One day during these failed joining attempts, he was approached by Dr. Abraham Erskine? I'm sorry, I'm really bad at foreign names, as you can tell. And he was specifically asked,
"You want to go overseas? Kill some Nazis."
To which Steve responded that no, he just wants to protect people from bullies. This was enough, and he was enlisted into the US Armed Forces. While at boot camp, Rogers showed determination, brains, and nobility, earning the trust of his superiors in order to become the world's first super soldier. After some drugs, radiation, and magic glow-up juice, Steve was transformed into Captain America. There's some stuff that happens after that where he has to go through some PR and red tape nonsense, but we'll get to that in the dings. Longtime viewers of our alignment series may have seen that once upon a time, our alignment wheel had placed Mr. Rogers as an example of lawful good. And today we're going to see just how accurate that is. Personally, I still say he will start there because Steve is a man of conviction, determination, and pure willpower. At the beginning of the movie series, he loves his country and is more than willing to die to protect it. And although he doesn't like using violence, he isn't afraid to do so whenever necessary in order to protect the weak and innocent. So yeah, lawful good to start. And you guys actually have no idea how much I love the MCU's Captain America. Cap is a rare breed of character that doesn't really quite exist anymore quite like this. And I gotta admit, I miss it a little bit. But with all of that out of the way, let's go.
That is America's ass.
Kind of makes you think twice about enlisting, huh?
Nope.
Steve tries and fails to join the army for the 4th time. Trying to cool off at the movies, Steve stands up to a heckler, making a scene at the newsreel. Chaotic good.
You know it's illegal to lie on the enlistment form. And seriously, Jersey?
Saved by best friend James Bucky Barnes, Steve goes with him and a few dates to Stark Expo before Bucky goes overseas. Spotting yet another chance, Steve goes to enlist despite his friend's protests. Chaotic good.
But you didn't answer my question. Do you want to kill Nazis?
Fronted by Dr. Abraham, this name, about enrolling for the 5th time, Steve is honest in this fantastic scene. It really cuts to the core of what makes Steve truly iconic for a reason. Sure, he wants to punch Hitler in the face, but it's not because Hitler is a Nazi. Steve hates bullies and wants to do his part. This convinces this guy to give Steve a chance, but only if he does his part. Lawful good.
We have the best men. And because they're going to get better.
Steve trains despite a ton of health problems. Time and again, he pushes himself to proving his valor and his smarts. This includes jumping on a grenade, and this is enough to earn this guy's recommendation for Project Rebirth.
Look at that. He's making me cry.
I'm not gonna say his name. Lawful good.
Can you hear me?
It's probably too late to go to the bathroom, right?
Going through the super soldier procedure, Steve becomes the first successful subject. Unfortunately, a Hydra spy shoots the scientist down. When he dies, Steve chases after the spy all across town, saving innocent lives and hoping to capture the spy alive. Lawful good.
The serum amplifies everything that is inside, so good becomes great. Bad becomes worse.
Also, as a side note, there will be no modifiers for Steve becoming a super soldier. While he is saying that good will become great, Steve is still the same person. There's no personality shift. He just is more self-realized.
Strong and brave, here to save the American way.
With this guy and the Hydra spy dead, Steve gives his blood to hopefully recreate the procedure. Despite wanting to do his part against Hydra, he's sidelined by the SSR. Steve is then picked up to help sell war bonds, becoming Captain America. Admittedly, he wants to help on the field, but he does his job during a Nat 20 song. Lawful good.
How many of you are ready to help me sock old Adolf on the job?
Dejected during a USO show, Steve learns that several soldiers, including Bucky, have been captured by Hydra. After being shooed away by Special Agent K, watch that video up here, Steve goes behind enemy lines with the help of Peggy Carter and Howard Stark to save his friends. Chaotic good.
Let's hear it for Captain America!
Steve dismantles the Hydra facility with the help of soldiers he rescued, including Bucky. Arming them, they steal Hydra equipment and information for the SSR. When he returns, Steve gives himself up to be punished for disciplinary measures, which turns out to be very unnecessary. Lawful good.
Electrical relays that allow you to...
What about this one?
No, that's just a prototype.
What's it made of?
Vibranium.
Foregoing a medal, Steve joins the SSR and forms the Howling Commandos by personally asking every member. Armed by Howard with a sleek new shield, Steve and the Commandos begin dismantling Hydra. They are able to take down several factories and capture Armin Zola, but Steve loses Bucky. And just like other famous dead comic characters, Jason Scott, i.e. Jason Todd and Gwen Stacy, I'm sure we'll never see him again. Lawful good, twice for the montage.
It's not like we can just knock on the front door.
Why not? That's exactly what we're gonna do.
With Hydra weakened, Steve uses himself as bait to get the Skull out of hiding. With the Commandos and the SSR attacking the base, Steve goes after the Skull's airship to prevent an air raid on America. Lawful good.
I gotta put her in the water.
Defeating the Red Skull and losing the Tesseract, but with the plane heading to the US, Steve takes the plane down away from civilians. He's ready to die to save thousands of lives while saying a tearful goodbye to Peggy. Lawful good.
Where am I?
You're in a recovery room in New York City.
Where am I really?
Waking up in a hospital bed, seemingly in the 1940s New York, Steve quickly realizes something is wrong. He confronts the nurse before escaping. It's then he learns the sad truth that while he is back in America, almost 70 years have passed. This little outburst we'll call chaotic neutral.
I wake up, they say we won. They didn't say what we lost.
For roughly a year, Steve acclimates to the 2010s with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s help. He learns most of his allies and friends have died save for Peggy, who helped found S.H.I.E.L.D. before retiring. He's inactive, not sure what his direction should be in a post-World War II world. Neutral twice.
You here with a mission, sir?
I am.
Trying to get me back in the world?
Trying to save it.
Steve learns from Colonel Nick Fury that S.H.I.E.L.D. discovered the Tesseract, the Skull's cosmic cube, before it was stolen by Loki. With a new mission, Steve works with Fury, Bruce, Natasha, and superfan Phil Coulson to get back the Tesseract. Lawful good.
I've come here to put an end to Loki's schemes.
And prove it. Put that hammer down.
Steve battles and captures Loki with the help of Natasha and the newly arrived Tony Stark. Steve suspects something, but is sidetracked by trying to stop Thor's intervening. He calms the situation down by bringing Loki back to the helicarrier. Lawful good.
Put on the suit. Let's go a few rounds.
Steve is among the many who are manipulated by Loki and the Tesseract.
Actually, Stuart, I think you'll find it wasn't the Tesseract that was manipulating the Avengers. It was actually the Loki's scepter, because in Loki's scepter is the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone's the one that can manipulate people's minds, not the Tesseract. The Tesseract harbors the Space Stone, Stuart. I mean, look, there it is. Look, there's Loki's scepter, and it's doing it. So, Stuart, in the future, I suggest you do your research before you make yourself look like a stupid fucking prick.
In particular, he begins getting frustrated by Tony, whom he believes is a far cry from Howard. This even leads him to eventually snoop around and find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has gathered old Hydra tech to create weapons. Let's go with chaotic neutral.
Put on the suit. Yep.
When the helicarrier is attacked, Steve puts the petty arguments aside and works with Tony to save the ship. The ship is stabilized, but not without sacrifice. Lawful good.
You got a suit? And suit up.
Inspired by Phil's death and Fury's words, Steve tries to comfort a traumatized Tony. He then leads the other newly formed Avengers into the battle for New York. Steve takes charge, using his years of experience to help mitigate damage, save lives, and stop Loki and the Chitauri invasion. Lawful good.
Don't say it. Don't you say it.
Left.
Come on!
After getting a bite of shawarma with his teammates and sending Loki back to Asgard, Steve joins S.H.I.E.L.D. as a full-time agent, in between making a few PSAs, of course. Steve then uses what freedom he has to see Peggy. Beyond this, Steve barely forms connections with anyone, the exception being a fellow soldier named Sam Wilson. More on him later. Lawful good twice.
Too busy!
Was he wearing a parachute?
No. No, he wasn't.
During a routine S.H.I.E.L.D. mission, Steve helps take down several pirates, including Batroc. That's this guy's name, I guess. He's throwing himself into work, but also frustrated by the secrets kept by Widow and Fury, while also avoiding getting set up by the former. Lawful good.
Yeah, I know. They're a little bit bigger than a 22.
Talking with Fury about Natasha's mission, Steve learns of Project Insight. Steve is naturally horrified by this invasion of privacy and doesn't want to sign off on this. He then talks with Peggy and finds Sam to try to cool his head after the whole experience. Lawful good.
Don't trust anyone.
Coming home and briefly running into, well, we'll get to that later, Steve finds a wounded Nick Fury in his apartment. Nick is shot, but not before giving him a flash drive. Steve fails to capture the shooter, but hides the existence of the stick to anyone, including Nat and Alexander Pierce. Chaotic good.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Realizing he's walking into a trap, Steve defends himself to escape both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Strike. Running into Natasha, he learns about the Winter Soldier. With Nat's help, the two go on the run to try to find out why Nick was killed. Chaotic good.
Shall we play a game? It's from a movie that was really popular.
Finding a computerized Armin Zola, Steve learns that Hydra has taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. and is behind Project Insight. He also learns one horrifying secret about the Winter Soldier and the Starks. With no one else to turn to and Nat hurt, Steve turns to the one person he can trust, Sam Wilson. Chaotic good.
Because it's really not just style, Rogers.
You're right. It's hers.
Checking in on Nat, the trio decide to get answers from Jasper Stillwell, a Hydra agent. This involves playing good cop, bad cop with Nat, so technically Steve was the good cop, but this is a little messed up, but you know, no one got hurt. Let's go with chaotic good.
Bucky? Who the hell is Bucky?
Attacked by the Winter Soldier, Steve defends himself, Nat, and Sam. Saving Natasha from being shot, Steve learns that the soldier is one last familiar face from his past, a brainwashed and very alive Bucky. Steve tries to get him to stop, but gives up when Strike arrests him. Lawful good.
S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra. It all goes.
Saved by a deep cover Nick Fury and Maria Hill, Steve and the others compare notes. When Nick suggests getting rid of Hydra but salvaging S.H.I.E.L.D., Steve is against the idea. He insists that S.H.I.E.L.D. is too far gone and corrupted and needs to be completely dismantled. Neutral good.
Some of you were even ordered to hunt me down. But I think it's time you know the truth.
Invading this thing, Steve decides to help separate Hydra from the rest and tells all of S.H.I.E.L.D. the truth while avoiding any fear-mongering. Once done, Steve rushes to stop Project Insight from launching while coming face-to-face with the Winter Soldier. Lawful good.
Because I'm with you to the end of the line.
With Project Insight stopped, Steve stops to help a pinned-down Bucky. Even with Bucky attacking him, Steve refuses to fight his friend and tries to undo the brainwashing. Chaotic good.
You don't have to come with me.
I know. When do we start?
With S.H.I.E.L.D. dismantled and Hydra on the run, Steve and Sam team up to find a missing Bucky. Steve also coordinates with the Avengers to find and take down Hydra and their agents, the Maximoff twins. Lawful good for looking for Bucky and Hydra, but I also have to give a chaotic good for now withholding the truth to Tony.
But it's a trick.
No, it's much more than that.
Whosoever be he, worthy shall have the power. Whatever, man, it's a trick.
Now that Hydra is beaten, Steve celebrates with the other Avengers and associates. Steve talks with Sam briefly about Bucky, but presses on. However, with all this conflict still going on, Steve has difficulties lifting Thor's hammer. Kinda. Neutral and Nat 20 scene.
That's the endgame. How are you guys planning on beating that?
Together.
We'll lose.
And we'll do that together, too.
Surviving Ultron, who escaped, Steve insists that the Avengers can stand together and not rely on Tony's plans. They work together to find Ultron, but are bamboozled by the Maximoffs. Lawful good.
So, run and hide.
Until we can find Ultron, I don't have a lot else to offer.
After the public snafu with Hulk, the Avengers lay low at Clint's family farm. Steve helps around, but tensions continue to grow between Tony and Steve, poking at one another. Neutral.
You know what's in that cradle? The power to make real change, and that terrifies you.
I wouldn't call it a comfort.
Learning where Ultron is, Steve takes Natasha and Clint to stop the creation of Vision. Steve orders the cradle back to Stark while he serves as a distraction for Ultron. When a runaway train is about to kill hundreds, Steve puts his trust in Wanda and Pietro Maximoff. Lawful good.
Anyone on comms?
Ultron can't tell the difference between saving the world and destroying it. Where do you think he gets that?
Worried about what Tony may do with Vision, Steve brings the Maximoffs back to Avengers Tower. Steve tries to stop him, but things get too physical. So, chaotic good?
But we need to go.
With Thor's okay and talking with Vision, Steve accepts all of the help he can get while leading the Avengers against Ultron. The group is able to help save Sokovia, with Steve trying to evacuate civilians before and during the battle. Lawful good.
Avengers!
With Ultron beaten, but Vision warning everyone about some purple jewelry enthusiast, Steve opts to lead the new Avengers. Despite Tony ready to retire, Steve feels he once again isn't. Lawful good. For a year, Steve leads the new Avengers to stop terrorist attacks, both regular and enhanced. This includes going up against former Strike member Crossbones. Steve leads everyone well, but sadly casualties occur when he freezes up at Bucky's name, lawful good, over the course of the period.
What would you call a group of US-based, enhanced individuals?
Steve tries to help Wanda, who's clearly hurting from her incident. Meeting with Ross and Stark, Steve is told to sign the Sokovia Accords. This is an interesting debate, but regardless, several members think United Nations supervision is a good thing. Steve reads the Accords, doing his research and feeling that this could have the potential to be misused. I'm going to say lawful good because Steve is doing the research and talking with everyone about it.
Sorry, Ned. I can't sign it.
Upon finding Peggy has passed, Steve attends the funeral of his former love. After being motivated by Sharon, Steve talks with Natasha and confesses he cannot sign the Accords in its current state, chaotic neutral.
Congratulations, Cap. You're a criminal.
After the UN was attacked by what appears to be Bucky, Steve ignores warnings and goes to look into the matter with Sam. Steve tries to convince his former friend to give himself up, but also see if he remembers anything. In the end, they're all captured after T'Challa joins the fight. Chaotic good.
Remaining was not a court sanction. And Colonel Rhodes is supervising cleanup.
Try not to break anything while we fix this.
Consequences? You bet there'll be consequences.
Steve goes along with his capture and talks with Tony, who tries to get him to sign the Accords. They're being polite, and Steve even considers signing when he realizes this could help Sam and Bucky get lighter sentences. Finding out that Wanda is being held captive against her will, however, Steve refuses to sign in retaliation. Chaotic good? After Zemo successfully reactivates Bucky's programming, Steve rushes to stop both. Steve manages to stop Bucky from escaping and takes him somewhere safe to talk. Neutral good. Breaking through the programming, Steve and Sam learn about the other Winter Soldiers. Worried that Zemo may try to awaken them all, Steve chooses not to drag Tony and the other Avengers in. He gears up and begins recruiting for his mission. Okay, so Nat 1 and chaotic neutral for the Sharon bit. It is weird, it is gross a little bit, and it feels like other characters were kind of forcing him into it, and I feel Steve was just as uncomfortable as everyone else was. Chaotic good. With Clint, Wanda, and Scott Lang, the group are ready to stop Zemo when Stark finds them. Steve tries to tell Tony the truth, but it's too little too late. The Civil War begins as only Steve and Bucky manage to escape after his team's insistence and Natasha's help. Chaotic good.
Did you know? I didn't know it was him. Shit. I just did you know.
Making plans to rescue his friends after all this is over, Steve and Bucky make it to the facility only to find Tony. The three team up, unaware that they've been followed by T'Challa. Upon finding Zemo, Tony learns that Bucky killed his parents. Steve confesses that he knew and protects Bucky from a bloodthirsty Tony. Chaotic good and Nat 20 fight.
That shield doesn't belong to you. You don't deserve it. My father made that shield.
Their friendship too badly damaged, but incapacitating Tony, Steve leaves his shield and takes Bucky. Sending Tony an apology letter, Steve rescues his friends and goes on the run. Steve continues to help where he can, including undoing Bucky's Winter Soldier program. Chaotic good once for, breaking his friends out of prison, then neutral good for the do-goodery later. Saving Wanda and Vision from the children of Thanos, Steve decides to say F the consequences and take Vision back to the Avengers HQ. Even with Ross demanding for his arrest, Steve begins working with the Earthbound Avengers against Thanos' invasion. Neutral good.
We don't trade lives, Vision.
Despite Vision's insistence, Steve doesn't want to let Vision die to destroy the stone. He and Wakanda work together to find a way to remove the stone safely from Vision, destroy it, and defend Wakanda. Lawful good. Steve and the others defend Wakanda and stall the children of Thanos. When Vision enters the battleground, Steve is one of many to try to keep him away from the children of Thanos. However, even Steve is unable to stop the snap. Lawful good.
Reboot it. Send the signal again.
Following the battle, Steve and the other Avengers try to determine the severity of the snap. With Carol's arrival, Steve gets her to save Tony and Nebula in deep space. Neutral good.
Who here hasn't been to space?
Why?
With Tony back on Earth, Steve quickly begins to try to form a plan, not fighting back as Tony yells at him. Steve is among the many heroes who go to take the stones back from Thanos and undo the snap. Neutral good. For 5 years, Steve tries to help both everyday people and his fellow heroes through the snap. However, even he is having trouble keeping up hope. Neutral good, twice.
Is this an old message?
It's the front gate.
Seeing a still alive Scott outside of their door and the prospect of time travel, Steve goes to Tony for help. Steve is all for using time travel to help save the world and wants to do it right. Even when Tony says no at first, Steve wants to make sure that he can do this correctly and recruits Hulk. Lawful good.
Bring back what we lost? I hope, yes. Keep what I found, have to, at all costs.
After Tony figures out how to correctly do time travel, Steve promises Tony not to undo the last 5 years. The group of them come together and help figure out the best way to do the time heist. With last words to everyone, Steve goes with Tony, Bruce, and Scott back to 2012. Neutral good.
That's okay. Trust me. Hail Hydra.
At the Battle of New York, Steve uses deception against Strike to steal the scepter. Nat 20 scene, by the way. A sign of how much Steve has changed since he last shared an elevator with these people. He is also forced to battle his 2012 Time variant who suspects he's Loki. Neutral good.
You trust me? I do.
The time heist compromise after Tony accidentally caused the Loki Disney Plus show. Steve and Tony realize a way to get back the Tesseract and more Pym particles for time travel. Traveling back to the 1970s, Steve and Tony are able to swipe what they need. With a mission success, Steve steals a glimpse of Peggy before returning to the present. Neutral good.
Avengers! Assemble.
With the snap successful but a past Thanos coming for revenge, Steve helps kick off a big Nat 20 scene with Thor and Tony. Having overcome his inner turmoil, Steve is able to lift Mjolnir. Even with an army standing in front of him, and by himself, Steve is ready to fight before saying what's been teased to us since the beginning. Lawful good, Nat 20 scene. So good.
Don't do anything stupid till I get back.
How can I? You're taking all this stupid with you.
After the battle with Thanos, Steve volunteers to finally put all 6 stones back along with Mjolnir. However, once he's finished, Steve finally decides he's had enough battles. He stays in the past, marrying Peggy, and is not interfering with the past. Neutral good for returning all the stones, but then 4 neutrals for continuing to live his life until his retirement.
I'll do my best.
That's why it's yours.
Returning to his friend, an aged man, Steve ends his tenure as Captain America by giving the shield to his successor, Sam. Steve leaves, leaving a legacy behind and rested for the remainder of his life. Neutral good.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
I am very biased when it comes to Captain America. I grew up in a very conservative part of Ohio in the United States, and I was raised to be that sort of self-sacrificing good Christian boy who puts others before himself. Obviously, as an adult, I am nothing like Captain America or Steve Rogers, but I really believe that we should hold ourselves as accountable, or at least as close to as accountable as Steve holds himself. And I promise I'm not going to promote my politics or anything in this post-analysis, but it's important to understand my biases, and it's important to understand why people like me really appreciate this character. Steve Rogers is a character who, while having loyalty and love for his country, puts people first and agendas and goals second. Steve, while starting at lawful good, eventually learns that sometimes rules and regulations can get in the way of doing what's right. Originally, he was loyal to America, then to S.H.I.E.L.D., and then after the events of Winter Soldier, he learned better than anyone that organizations will always serve themselves first and people second, especially ones that get powerful enough to directly affect millions. Once Steve learns that he can't blindly trust these organizations, he puts all of his trust into his friends and newfound family, the Avengers. And while yes, they're technically an organization, it's a small group that are willing to hold each other accountable and simply go out and do what is best for literally everyone, not just those that benefit them specifically. During the making of this video, the others on my team, specifically X, who's editing this video, kept asking me if I was Team Cap or Team Iron Man during the course of Civil War. And I'll admit, I was Team Cap, but that's mostly because of my personal politics. And I'm willing to admit that Steve was being an emotionally driven fool during most of that movie. The politics of Civil War were honestly really bad, and there was a lot of information that we just didn't know about. It's just not good, because the core of the Captain America movies are supposed to be about what's doing what's right for everyone versus what's doing what's right for yourself and for your friends. Cap is defined by two things: his nobility and his need to stand up for the weak against bullies, and his love for his friends. Civil War is one of my favorite MCU movies, not because of the politics, but because in the last third of the film, we see him at his most conflicted when he has to protect his two best friends against each other. And that is the best conflict in Civil War and Captain America as a character. Not this Team Cap herder, my freedom argument against Iron Man's govern me harder daddy gun control nonsense. Even as the leader of the Secret Avengers, he still dedicated his life to protecting others. It wasn't until after the events of Infinity War and the trauma he faced there and the defeat of the universe's mad tyrant that he decided that maybe he's finally earned a rest. And with that, I hope you'll join us for our next MCU main champion, and that'll be Thor Odinson, and then we'll wrap up this main character trilogy with the Iron Man himself, Tony Stark. Thank you to the patrons, and I'll MC you later.